The lights dimmed, the bass thumped, and the crowd roared as Drake stepped onto the stage. Everything looked like the perfect show from the outside. But those who had been watching closely noticed something off right away. His smile was tight, almost forced, and instead of exchanging playful banter with the fans in the front row, he kept glancing toward the side of the stage as if someone was watching him. Halfway through his third song, he paused. It was subtle at first, a quick breath, a flicker of hesitation, but then the music cut out completely. The crowd fell silent, confused. Drake took a step forward, gripping the mic so tightly his knuckles turned pale. "You think you can just talk about me like that and I'll stay quiet?" His voice was low, trembling, but not from fear. It was anger. "Nah, I'm done being quiet." The audience erupted into whispers. Some thought he was about to launch into a freestyle diss track. Others thought maybe it was just part of the act. But those close enough to see his face knew it wasn't a performance. His eyes were wet, his jaw clenched. A fan in the front row called out, "Is this about Kendrick?" Drake looked directly at her. "You already know who it's about." He shot back, his tone sharp. He had the nerve. To bring my family into this again? The word family sent a shockwave through the crowd. Everyone knew their beef had been mostly lyrical shots and verses, subliminals in interviews, but family. That was a new level. And just when people thought he might cool down and move on, he slammed the mic stand so hard it rattled the stage top backstage. A few crew members exchanged worried looks. One of them, an older stage manager who'd worked with Drake for years, whispered to another, "He's not supposed to be saying this." This wasn't on the set list. Something happened before the show. As if on cue, a shadow moved near the side curtain. No one could mistake the silhouette. It was one of Kendrick's close friends, a low-key producer who'd been seen with him at several private events. The sight of him made Drake's head snap toward the wing of the stage. "You got the nerve to send your little messenger here?" Drake shouted, pointing. "Tell him I'm not hiding. Tell him I'm right here." The fans went wild, phones shooting up into the air to capture every word. Social media was already lighting up with posts, short clips with captions like, "Drake losing it and Kendrick won't like this." From the corner of the stage, the producer stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "This ain't the place, man," he said, loud enough for the front rows to hear. "No, this is exactly the place." Drake fired back. "You think I'm gonna wait until he takes another shot? Nah, tell your boy if he's gonna keep dragging my name, I'm dragging him right back." Then, for the first time, his voice cracked. He doesn't know what he's playing with. The producer held up his hands in a calm-down gesture, but security moved in quickly, blocking him from stepping closer. Drake turned back to the crowd, breathing heavily. "You all know I don't do this," he said, pacing. "I don't stop a show for nobody. But when someone disrespects my family, when they try to spin lies, I'm not letting that slide." He crossed a line. Gasps rippled through the arena. People were frantically texting friends, some even leaving their seats to get better angles for their recordings. In the luxury boxes above, a few industry insiders watched silently, exchanging glances that said they knew more than they were, willing to admit and then, as if the night wasn't already tense enough. Someone in the crowd shouted a line from one of Kendrick's recent tracks, one that had been widely speculated to be about Drake. The words hit him like a slap. He froze, turned toward the section where the voice came from, and narrowed his eyes. "You think that's funny?" he said, his tone icy. "You think I don't know what he meant by that?" People in that section grew quiet, some ducking down in their seats. But instead of calming down, Drake's voice grew louder. "He's been sending little shots for years, and I let it go. I thought maybe he'd grow up, but nah, he's still the same. And if he wants to go there, I'm ready to go there." Backstage, his personal assistant was frantically checking her phone. She turned to one of the crew members and whispered, "It's worse than we thought. He saw the video before he came out here." "What video?" the crew member asked. She hesitated, biting her lip. Kendrick said something about Drake's son, and it's all over the blogs already. That explained everything. Drake had always been fiercely protective of his child, keeping him out of the public eye for as long as possible. And now, if Kendrick had truly crossed that line, there was no going back. As the crowd's murmurs grew louder, Drake ran a hand over his face, visibly trying to compose himself. But then he muttered under his breath, "Nah, I'm not done," and walked to the very edge of the stage. "He knows exactly what he's doing," Drake told the audience. "He wants to break me. He wants to get a reaction." Well, here it is. And then, in a moment that made everyone gasp, he shouted a string of curses aimed directly at Kendrick by name. It was unfiltered, venomous, and impossible to misinterpret. Fans screamed, some in shock, some in excitement. Twitter exploded within seconds. The words Drake, Kendrick, and family were already trending, but in the chaos, no one noticed something strange happening at the side of the stage. Two men in dark hoodies slipped in through the service entrance, moving quickly toward the backstage area. They weren't part of the crew. One of the security guards noticed them and moved to intercept. But before he could, a producer who had been standing in the wings stepped forward and waved him off. The guard hesitated. Something about the exchange felt wrong. On stage, Drake was now pacing back and forth, almost talking to himself. "I kept quiet when he tried to come at me before. I let it slide when he disrespected my friends. But this is different. He's gonna regret it." Someone from the production team rushed toward the stage manager. "We need to cut the feed," she whispered urgently. "This is going live on the pay-per-view stream. We can't. Just cut it mid-show," the stage manager replied. Panicked. But as they argued, Drake turned again toward the side of the stage, and his expression darkened. The two men in hoodies were now standing just a few feet away from the curtain. And in that split second, something in Drake's demeanor changed. His anger sharpened into something colder. More focused, he dropped the mic to his side, muttered something under his breath, and started walking straight toward them. The crowd didn't understand what was happening. But backstage, everyone knew this was about to spiral. And then, Drake disappeared into the shadows of the stage wing, leaving the crowd murmuring and straining to see what was going on. The band stopped playing entirely now, their instruments falling silent as even the backup singers exchanged worried glances. Backstage, the two men in hoodies froze when Drake approached, his steps slow but deliberate. He wasn't yelling anymore, which somehow made it even more unsettling. "You here for him?" Drake asked, his voice low enough that the front row couldn't hear, but still sharp as a knife. One of the men glanced at the producer, the same one who had been watching from the wings earlier. The producer gave a small nod. "We just came to talk," one of the hooded men said carefully. Drake let out a bitter laugh. "Talk? Do you think you can show up at my show? Stand in the shadows and talk? Nah, this is some setup. Where is he?" The other man shook his head. "He's not here, man, but he sent a message." Drake stepped closer until they were almost face to face. A message, like the one in that track. Or the one in that little video he dropped about my kid. Silence. That silence was all the confirmation Drake needed. His hand tightened around the mic in his left hand, though he wasn't speaking into it anymore. Then the producer stepped forward, raising both palms. "Drake, listen, this is getting out of control. Whatever he said, it's music. You're letting it get too personal." Drake's eyes narrowed. Too personal. He made it personal. "Do you think I'm gonna let somebody talk about my son and just brush it off? Nah, I'm not built like that." The crowd could still see the movement at the side of the stage, and now people were chanting, some calling out for Drake to come back, others egging him on with chants of "say it again" and "drop the diss." The atmosphere was feverish, a mix of anticipation and dread. Backstage, one of Drake's security guards quietly approached from behind. "You want me to move them out?" he murmured. Drake didn't answer right away. Instead, he stared at the two hooded men for a long moment before finally saying, "Nah, let them stay. They're gonna hear this." And with that, he turned and strode back on stage. The crowd erupted again as he reappeared. But there was no music now, just the echo of his footsteps across the stage. He stood in the center, microphone raised, and for a long moment, he didn't speak. He just looked out at the thousands of faces staring back at him. Finally, he said, "You ever have somebody pretend they respect you? But behind closed doors, they plotting on you, smiling in your face, then sliding little daggers in your back when you're not looking." That's what this is. A murmur swept through the arena. Drake's tone was calm now, but there was a weight to his words that made everyone lean in. "See? He's been playing chess for years," Drake continued, dropping little hints in songs, hoping I'll bite. "And I stayed cool because I thought maybe, just maybe, we could keep it on the music. But then he went too far. He knows exactly what I'm talking about, and so do some of you." A few people in the crowd shouted the video. Drake's eyes flicked toward them. "Yeah, the video," he said. "He thought it would break. Me? He thought I'd hide. But here I am." The hooded men were still in the wings listening. The producer's face was tense, his jaw tight. And then, without warning, Drake dropped a bombshell. "You think you know the whole story? Nah." "What he didn't tell you is that he's been trying to get close to someone in my family. Someone who ain't even in this industry. And if you think I'm lying, ask him why he was in Toronto 2 weeks ago." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Social media was on fire now, with fans posting live updates like Drake accusing Kendrick of messing with his family. And this is past music beef backstage. One of Drake's friends, a childhood buddy from the neighborhood, was shaking his head. "He's going too far," he muttered. "Once you start saying stuff like that, there's no turning back." On stage, Drake kept going. "He wants to play dirty. Cool. I can play dirty too. But I'm warning you, all this ain't gonna end with a song. When you bring family into it, you're asking for war." The arena was electric. Some fans were loving the drama. Others looked uneasy. But everyone knew they were witnessing something that would be talked about for years. And just when it seemed like Drake might start rapping on the spot, the lights suddenly flickered. It wasn't part of the show. A low, rumbling buzz came through the speakers, and the giant screen behind him glitched for a second before showing a grainy, shaky video. The crowd gasped. On the screen was Kendrick sitting in a studio chair, smirking. The audio was distorted at first, but then his voice came through clearly. "You can't hide forever, Drizzy. You know what I know? And soon they'll all know it too." Drake froze. His eyes locked on the screen, his chest rising and falling. The crowd went wild, screaming, shouting, filming. Some were chanting Kendrick's name, others booing. The tension was unbearable. Then the video cut out just as abruptly as it started, leaving only the stunned silence of thousands of people trying to process what they had just seen. Drake's hands trembled slightly as he raised the mic. "You think that scares me?" he said, but his voice wavered just enough for people to wonder. "Nah, that just proves everything I've been saying." The hooded men backstage exchanged glances. One of them pulled out his phone and started typing rapidly. Backstage staff scrambled to figure out how the video had even gotten into the live feed. One tech whispered to another, "That wasn't us. That came from an outside signal." Drake took a step forward, looking straight into one of the cameras streaming the show. "You think you can play me like this? Nah. You just woke something up that you can't put back to sleep." The crowd roared again, but there was a different energy now. It wasn't just excitement, it was the sense that something dangerous was brewing. As he finished speaking, he suddenly turned and walked toward the side of the stage again, heading directly for the hooded men. Security moved in quickly, unsure of whether to stop him or back him up. The producer stepped in front of them, trying to defuse the situation. "Don't do this here," he said firmly, but Drake just shook his head. Too late. The world's already watching. The hooded man with the phone put it away and said quietly, "He told us to give you this if things got heated." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small flash drive. Drake stared at it, then at them. "What is this?" "Proof," the man replied. Drake didn't take it. "Nah, you keep your little games. Tell him I'm not scared. Tell him I'm ready." He turned back toward the stage. And then someone shouted from the back of the arena. The voice was faint over the crowd noise, but it made Drake freeze mid-step. "Drizzy, ask him about Vegas. Vegas." The crowd instantly erupted into new chatter. "Vegas? What happened in Vegas?" Drake's expression shifted Donjar, mixed with something that almost looked like worry. He took one step toward the mic again. The words hung in the air like smoke. Vegas. Just that one word, and the entire arena shifted. People in the crowd leaned toward each other, whispering, pulling out their phones to see if anything about Vegas was already trending. Drake stood frozen in the middle of the stage, eyes scanning the crowd as if he could spot the voice that had just cracked his armor. "What did you say?" His voice was sharp, almost desperate now. Several fans yelled Vegas again, their voices echoing around the arena. Someone even shouted, "We know what happened," and laughter rippled through one section. Drake's grip on the mic tightened. "You don't know a thing," he said. But it sounded more like a warning than a denial. Backstage, the hooded men exchanged another glance. The producer took a cautious step forward toward Drake. "Don't let them bait you, man," he said, voice low but urgent. "Whatever Vegas is, don't say it here." But that was the wrong thing to say. Drake turned on him instantly. "Don't tell me what I can and can't say. You think I don't know who planted that in the crowd? You think I don't know who sent people here tonight? The crowds?" Murmurs grew louder. People could feel something bigger than just a rap beef boiling underneath. Drake began pacing again, running his free hand over his face. "He thinks Vegas is my weak spot," he said into the mic. "He thinks if he throws that out, I'll crumble. But nah, you all want to know about Vegas? Fine, let's talk about Vegas." The arena went silent except for a few stray shouts too. "Months ago," Drake began slowly, "I get invited to this so-called industry summit in Vegas. I go thinking it's just networking, maybe a couple of performances. But when I get there, guess who's in the VIP section acting like it's a coincidence? Yeah, him." The crowd reacted instantly, half booing, half cheering. "But here's the thing," Drake continued. "He didn't just show up. He brought someone with him, someone from my past, someone I haven't spoken to in years for a reason." Gasps rippled through the audience. Drake's tone had shifted. Now it was colder, more personal. Backstage, Drake's assistant looked like she'd seen a ghost. She whispered to one of the crew members, "He's about to talk about her." The crew member's eyes widened. "He can't do that here. This is live." On stage, Drake went on. "She walks right up to me in Vegas, smiling, acting like she's happy to see me. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe this is just some random coincidence. But then she starts dropping hints about private stuff, about my family, about my son that she should have no way of knowing unless somebody told her. And that's when it hit me. He sent her." The audience collectively gasped. Some people were filming so intensely their hands were shaking. "So, yeah," Drake said, his voice growing harsher. "Vegas wasn't about a show. Wasn't about music. It was about him trying to dig into my life, trying to pull skeletons out of my closet and throw them in my face. And you know what? I'm not letting him win that game." The hooded men in the wings shifted uncomfortably, one of them muttering under his breath. And then Drake looked straight into the nearest camera. "You're watching this right now, aren't you? You think you're clever? You think you can mess with my family, with my past, and get away with it? But you made a mistake, and you're gonna regret it." The crowd exploded into cheers, though some fans looked uneasy, sensing just how personal this had gotten. But before Drake could continue, commotion broke out near the front row. A man had pushed his way forward, waving something in his hand up. Phone security moved in quickly, but Drake spotted him and held up a hand. "Let him speak." Drake said into the mic. The man, clearly nervous, said, "I got the video from Vegas, the one nobody's seen yet." The arena erupted again, fans screaming and chanting. Drake's eyes narrowed. "Bring it here," he said. Security hesitated. But eventually the man was escorted to the edge of the stage, holding up his phone so Drake could see. The screen showed a dimly lit room. Drake sitting at a table with the woman he'd just mentioned. And in the corner, barely visible, someone who looked a lot like Kendrick's close friend. "Where'd you get this?" Drake demanded. "Doesn't matter," the man replied. "Just know, he's been playing you." Drake's jaw clenched. He turned back to the crowd, his voice steady but dripping with venom. "You see, proof. This is what I'm talking about. He's been sending people into my life trying to shake me. But guess what? I don't shake." The audience roared again, some chanting Drake's name, others yelling Kendrick's. The energy was split now, almost like two rival camps inside. One building. Backstage, the producer whispered urgently to the hooded men, "Get him off stage before this turns into a riot." But Drake wasn't done. "And here's the part nobody knows," he said, lowering his voice so the crowd leaned in. "After Vegas, I got a call. Private number. No voice, just breathing." And then a text came through, one word. Soon, fans gasped. Phones shot up and social media instantly lit up with theories. Was it Kendrick? Was it someone else? Drake's expression hardened. "You want to threaten me? You want to play games? Fine, but don't act surprised when I stop playing nice." And just when the crowd thought they'd heard the wildest part, Drake added, "He's not just coming after me. He's coming after someone else too. And if he does, that's the line. There's no coming back from that." As he spoke, one of the hooded men finally stepped out onto the stage. The crowd gasped, recognizing him from earlier. He walked right up to Drake and whispered something in his ear. Drake's face went pale. Whatever the man said, it shook him. He stepped back, looking around the arena as if the walls were closing in. "Say that again?" Drake demanded. But the man only shook his head. The producer rushed forward, trying to steer them both toward the backstage area, but Drake resisted. "Nah, tell them. Tell everyone what you just told me." The hooded man hesitated, then took the mic from Drake. His voice was deep, calm, but carried through the entire arena. "He's not in LA, he's here." The crowd went insane, screaming, shouting, jumping to their feet. Some fans thought Kendrick might actually walk onto the stage at any second. Drake's breathing quickened. He scanned the crowd, eyes darting from section to section as though expecting to spot him. And then, in the far upper level, a spotlight suddenly switched on, illuminating a lone figure standing in the aisle. From the distance, it was impossible to tell for sure. But the build, the posture, the stance, it looked exactly like Kendrick. The crowd erupted into chaos. People screamed his name. Others surged toward that section to get a closer look. Drake froze. Microphone in hand, eyes locked on the figure above. The figure didn't move, just stood there watching. And then, the lights went out. Total darkness. The blackout was absolute. 1 second, the arena was a roaring storm of light and noise. And the next, it was swallowed in thick, impenetrable darkness. The screams shifted from excitement to panic. Phones lit up everywhere like tiny fireflies, shaky beams of light cutting. Through the black, Drake's voice came faintly over the mic. "Keep calm. Everybody, stay calm." But his words were barely audible over the sea of voices shouting and calling out. Backstage, crew members scrambled to restore power, their radios crackling with overlapping voices. "This isn't a normal outage," one tech said breathlessly. This was cut. Someone pulled the mains. In the dark, heavy footsteps echoed from somewhere behind the stage. Drake turned toward the sound instinctively. but couldn't see anything beyond the glow of a few cell phones then. A single harsh white spotlight flickered on not over the stage, but on the far upper level where the figure had been standing. Before the blackout. Only now, the figure was gone. A wave of murmurs spread through the arena. Some people started chanting Kendrick's name again, while others yelled for Drake to watch his back. And then, in the stillness, a voice came. Over the arena speakers. It wasn't Drake's, and it wasn't Live It. Was pre-recorded. Slow, deliberate, and unmistakable. "You're looking in the wrong place, Drizzy." The crowd exploded, screams and gasps blending into one chaotic sound. Drake's head snapped toward the sound booth. But the producer backstage shook his head. Frantic Liat hadn't come from their equipment. Another voice line followed, this time with a faint chuckle at the end. "You can't see me, but I see you." Drake's jaw tightened, his other hand curling into a fist. "Cut it!" He barked into his mic, but nothing happened. The voice kept playing. Vegas was just the start. "This is bigger than you think." The message cut off abruptly, and the house lights snapped back on as if nothing had happened. Sudden brightness blinded the crowd momentarily. But when everyone's eyes adjusted, the stage looked exactly the same. Except Drake wasn't alone anymore, standing a few feet behind him. On the very edge of the stage was one of the hooded men. Only now, his hood was down, revealing a face that made half the arena gasp in recognition. It wasn't Kendrick, but it was someone from Kendrick's inner circle. A person who had appeared in several music videos and interviews over the years. Drake turned slowly, realizing the man had gotten that close without anyone stopping him. "You think this is a game?" Drake asked, voice low but trembling. The man didn't answer. He simply reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out the same flash drive from earlier. Holding it up for everyone to see, Drake shook his head. "I told you, I don't need whatever that is." The man finally spoke, his voice carrying eerily well without a mic. "Not for you to need, it's for them to see." And then, with a flick of his wrist, he tossed the flash drive toward the big screen operator, before anyone could stop it. The screen behind Drake lit up again, this time with a crystal clear video feed. The footage showed Drake in Vegas, sitting in a dimly lit lounge, the mystery woman from his past leaning close to him, whispering in his ear. The audio was muted, but the image was damning enough for fans who didn't know the context. The crowd erupted into chaos, some booing, some cheering, some just screaming at the shock of it. Phones everywhere were recording the moment, captions already forming in people's heads. Drake turned his back to the screen, facing the crowd instead. "You don't know the whole story," he said, almost shouting over the noise. "You're seeing what he wants you to see. It's all twisted, it's all lies." But the footage wasn't done. The camera angle shifted, showing the corner of the lounge where someone was seated in shadow. The lighting caught just enough of his face to confirm what everyone was already suspecting. It was Kendrick. The reaction was deafening. The arena shook with the combined force of thousands of voices. Dak. Single quotes as face darkened. "You think this is proof of something? This just proves how obsessed he is." The hooded man smiled faintly. "It's not obsession. It's the beginning." Security finally stepped in, surrounding the man and leading him toward the backstage exit. The producer grabbed Drake's arm. "We need to end this now," he hissed. But Drake yanked his arm free. "Nah, they want a show. I'll give them a show." He stepped forward, addressing the crowd directly. "This doesn't end tonight. This is just the start. You all saw what he did, you all heard what he said, but I promise you I'm not backing down. And when the time comes, I'm not holding back either." The crowd roared again, feeding off the raw energy. Drake's voice was steady now, but there was a fire behind his eyes. And then, just when it seemed like the night was winding down, another ripple of noise swept through the arena. People were pointing toward the side entrance. There, just for a moment, a figure stepped into view. Small in stature, wearing a cap pulled low, but moving with the kind of confidence that made people wonder, was it him? Before anyone could be sure, the figure turned and slipped back into the hallway, flanked by two large men. The chants started again. Kendrick, Kendrick. Kendrick Drake stood still, staring at the spot where the figure had been. He didn't move for a long moment, the chants echoing around him. Finally, he raised the mic one last time. You can run around my shows, you can send your people, you can play your little videos. But you know where to find me, you know I'm not hiding. And with that, he dropped the mic knot as a dramatic flourish. But with a dull, heavy thud that made the crowd fall silent for a split second, he walked off stage without looking back, disappearing into the shadows of the wings as the crowd erupted again. Not sure whether to cheer, boo, or just scream at the madness they had witnessed. Backstage, the producer caught up to him. You realize this is going everywhere tonight. Every blog, every feed, this is war now. Drake didn't slow down. Good, he said. Let him know I'm ready. And somewhere in the depths of the arena, away from the lights and the cameras, a phone buzzed with a single text. It was sent to an unlisted number. The sender unknown. 2 words. Your move. And just like that, the night ended not with a hit song, but with a mic drop heard around the world. Drake walked off that stage with the kind of energy you only see when something personal has been lit on fire. Fans are still buzzing about the Vegas revelations. The mysterious hooded men, the blackout, and that chilling pre-recorded voice. The internet is tearing itself apart with theories. Was that really Kendrick's voice over the speakers? Was he actually in the building? Or was this all an elaborate trap designed to push Drake over the edge? Okay, the family is divided, the fan base is split, and emotions are running higher than ever. Some are calling Drake's outburst iconic. Others are saying he fell right into Kendrick's plan. Either way, this isn't over. We've seen rap beefs before, but nothing quite like this rare personal history. Family ties and onstage meltdowns collide in one explosive moment, and now it's your turn to weigh in. What do you think really happened that night? Do you? Believe the Vegas story. Was Kendrick actually in that arena, watching it all unfold from the shadows? Or was someone else pulling the strings behind the scenes? Drop your theories in the comments below. Don't hold back, because you know we'll be reading them all. Make sure you hit that like button if you want us to keep digging into the behind-the-scenes chaos. And smash that subscribe button so you don't miss the next twist in this wild saga. And trust me, what we're hearing about the next move is true. The story's about to get even crazier. Stay tuned, because in this game, nothing is what it seems. Then the next chapter might just change everything.